Welcome to New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.
What's good, everybody? Happy Thursday. This week has flown by. It's your boy Dexter Henry, joined with Bryan Fonseca. Another edition of New York Got Game Knicks Weekly in what has been an interesting week in Knickland. But if you stayed up as late as I did last night to watch the end of that game, it was worth it. You were quite happy in what was one of the most interesting days in recent Knick history because some of you guys overreact. We'll get to all that later when Mikal Bridges and all that. Knicks 2-2 on this West Coast road trip. They have the final game of this trip on Saturday where they will play the Golden State Warriors. Our special guest will be joining us shortly, Natalie Esquire of NBC Sports, also on her turf and hoopstresses. Does a great job. Also very plugged in with the Warriors in the Bay Area. Bryan, how you doing, man?
Doing all right. It's been an interesting week, is what I'll say. But we're obviously Mikal Bridges. He just can't keep out of the headlines of our show we're doing here. We're gonna have to talk about him again, and he's probably going to be the most talked about player on the Knicks again. So he's probably the guy we've talked the most about this season.
In the last, I don't even know. You're right. Like a month, we probably talked about Mikal Bridges heavy.
I swear. There's no smoke, Mikal. There's honestly
no
smoke.
I mean, we had an episode of the show titled a couple weeks ago, "Do the Knicks have a Mikal Bridges problem?" In which I dissected that. We are going to talk about him in a very positive light, and we'll talk about him with some other things that I think other people aren't positive because I think they're letting how they feel about what the Knicks did to acquire him cloud their view of a lot of things. But we will get into all of that, which will be rather interesting. But the Knicks did win their second game of this trip, second game without Jalen Brunson that they won on this trip. They did lose the first one to the Clippers, so they've bounced back pretty nicely. Last night, though, that was not easy. Okay, the Knicks tried to hand that game away multiple times because they had it. I thought it was a wrap. Cat hit a couple of big threes. It looks like they're going to win. No. I mean, some of it, Scoot Henderson banks that three. Okay. Mikal Bridges came back, hit a jumper, looked good. Then I don't remember all the exact sequences, but it came down to a chance with them getting a stop off a defensive play. And then Josh Hart decided to try to run the baseline. He had a brain fart moment, not a typical Josh Hart moment, but he tries to run the baseline, and that's a no-no. And yeah, it was a turnover. And, luckily this went to overtime, and Mikal Bridges came the hero.
Six free throws from Mikal Bridges. Also,
how much?
6 free throws.
He's done that. I believe every game since Jalen Brunson's gone down. I believe he had 6 free throws against the Clippers.
I will check that. Let's see. You might be right. It feels right. Okay, so here we go. Jalen Brunson got hurt in the Laker game. 6 free throws against the Clippers, 2 against the Kings, 6 against Portland.
Okay, 2 against the Kings.
That's 14 in 3 games. So, yeah, it's about 5.
How many did he also have against the Lakers? I also thought he wasn't bad against the Lakers in terms of getting to line, if I remember correctly.
0.
Oh, he was bad. None.
He took 6 field goal attempts.
Yeah. And we're gonna dive into all that because I think that is a very good sign. And our producer, Jeff Stansbury, let me know that he had none against the Warriors in the game before that. That was back in New York. And that was a game where he shot efficiently. He had 15 points in the game, but did not take advantage of mismatches with Steph Curry, which, no, we talked about that. I did not think he played a good game.
15 on 15 shots, 7 of 15 is actually pretty good. But
yeah, 7 of 15 is not bad. The problem was
1 of 5 from 3-point line, and also the main thing we talked about. We're not gonna harp on it, but the main thing was just like you got Steph Curry on you. You don't need to pull up from try not to pull up from 18 feet.
Yeah,
try not to. Easy to say from here, but
yeah, that was a disappointing game. I think that was one of the games that frustrated you. But look, since then, with Jalen Brunson going out, he's been good, man. He's been more aggressive. The defense has been good, and the defense have been trending good from before the Warriors games. He's been playing really good defense for almost 3 weeks now. But even more so with the aggression I like, fighting over screens, and that was really good. But we got to do this. We got to look at this game winner last night. Producer Jeff Stansberry is going to bring it up now. We got to take a look at the game winner because it was fantastic. Look at this, coming off the curl, money, and yes, the celebration. The celebration was on point. You had to have that kind of celebration. And look, we've kind of buried the lead here, and I'm not dancing around it, but it's all the stuff that went on in the day with Mikal Bridges that I personally do not think was that big of a deal. Okay? I don't think it was. I personally do not think it's that big of a deal. I think there is a segment of the fan base and sports media and fans that don't, context doesn't matter. And the Knicks, and here's the part I get that I want to be very clear on. The Knicks, I understand that prior to this regime, have been run incompetently. I get that. So some of y'all are triggered. Any little thing that possibly could be negative, it's like, oh man, this is going to be bad. There's friction. Like, we're at a point now sometimes where, like, somebody has a discussion about something and we're like, is this going to be a problem? Like, or it could just be a discussion, right? Sometimes at work, you might not agree with your boss. Y'all act like y'all like everybody at work. That's not the case. That's not the case. There's some people at work you don't like. I'm not saying Thibs doesn't like Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges doesn't like Thibs. My point is that sometimes there has to be active discussions. Now, what I did find problematic in this part is, and Bryan, I'm sure you might agree with me on this, I didn't like the part that Thibs said that, and let me just be clear for everybody, so go back so we can be clear. Just to set the scene. Our colleague, Stephen Bondi, this context matters in this, asked a question to Mikal Bridges about whether he thought the perceptions of Thibs playing guys too many minutes was fair or not. That was the question. Mikal Bridges then gave the response that he gave, which I'm sure everybody has seen by now. Mikal Bridges was not angry, according to Stephen Bondi, in tone. He had no issue with this. He was just saying he had this conversation with Thibs, and I'm glad he brought it up to Thibs. I thought it was a healthy conversation. And he said that Thibs was receptive to it. So I asked Bryan, for some people, what's the big deal? Do you think there's a big deal?
I mean, the way it looks on the surface is Mikal Bridges joined the minutes police. I just caught that. The way this looks on the surface is, if you're an outsider, you're looking at it like Mikal Bridges is asking for a different distribution of the minutes or fewer minutes or whatever the case may be, right? Because he's first, and this is why, and the minutes police being part of this is a big deal, Dex, because these are the people. And I'm not saying I'm kind of in the middle. I think you're on the other side completely. I'm kind of in the middle here. But I think a lot of people are just of the mindset of like, hey, they should play less, and this is kind of feeding into that. We have a Stephen A. Smith clip that we're about to play also, where he gave his take on this, which we're going to respond to as well, because I know you have some thoughts on that. But to me, I think this is less of a big deal now, but it will come back up later on if there's another injury. I don't think it's fair to put the Jalen Brunson injury on Thibs either. I see some people doing that just because there's a track record of players getting hurt with Tom Thibodeau late in the year, as we saw last year. But, I mean, in the NBA, it's tough to gauge in 2025 because everybody gets hurt, it feels like.
So here's my thing, where I think I'm actually on the side that I don't think the minutes thing has been as big deal as some people make, but I do think Thibs could find minutes for younger players. I've said this on the show.
I agree.
In games against lower level opponents. That's always been my thing. The narrative also that exists that Thibs doesn't play young guys, I've poked holes in that consistently. One, that's just not true. It's literally not true, right? And I think that Mikal Bridges saying that he felt away. It is, I will say this, it is interesting coming from the NBA's Iron Man. I will say that. That matters for something. But Mikal Bridges saying this and then bringing up to his coach, it's everybody's acting like, oh my God, Mikal Bridges said something about a conversation he had with his coach. Guys, conversations happen. Have y'all ever not gone and talked to your boss about something that maybe you didn't like? It's okay. That's actually healthy. Why are we tripping over this?
Depends on the work environment.
The end of the world. What'd you say?
It depends on the work environment and the culture.
If you don't feel comfortable, in a work environment to go and talk to your boss, the problem's with the work culture or your boss. Probably. Or it might be you because you just shook. Right. You just might be shook. Yeah. I don't know. We're going to get more to that topic. Right now, I want to bring in good friend who does a fantastic job with NBC Sports on her turf. Hoopstress is really plugged into the Warriors. My good friend, Natalie Esquire, who joins me now. Nat, what's going on?
Hey, y'all. What's up? Thanks for having me.
No, glad to have you. Glad to have you here. We got this game coming up on Saturday, Knicks Warriors.
Yeah.
The first one, I saw you at the Garden for the last one. We were both there. Warriors got the win. Steph Curry did his thing in the second half. But this game, Nat, this one's got a little bit of a different juice around it because of some things. I'm not going to do this to you because I know you too well. I'm not going to say your boy, Draymond Green. If this was somebody else, I would say your boy. But because you're the homie, I'm never going to do that. And I actually know some of your thoughts on Draymond Green. So, I will ask you this. Well, let's start with this first because I want people to hear a little bit what you have to say. What were your thoughts on what Draymond Green did on his podcast with his comments towards Cat? And then you were actually there at the press conference where he was asked about that. You were actually there. So what were your thoughts on the whole thing that went down and how that adds to the juice of this game coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, pardon me, excuse me. When you, oh gosh, y'all had to zoom in on me. Just forgive me, everyone. My eye looks a little crazy. I do not have pink eye, but I did swap a blood vessel. And so that's why, I don't know, it's just really acting up right now. So forgive me, I'm not crying. Forgive the crazy eye, but I'm competent. Okay. So to your question though. Yeah, I mean, when I first saw the podcast clip, because I don't listen to his podcast. So when I first saw the podcast clip, I was like, oh, brother. And I just sort of rolled my eyes. And I don't even know if I knew then about the funeral or the circumstances for why Kat wasn't at the game. But I was just like, why? Why is this necessary? And why would Kat be missing a game because of Jimmy from years ago? It just made no sense to me. So it just seemed very unnecessary and Draymond because he does a lot of unnecessary things. And then when he was asked about it at the presser, I was like, oh, I'm it's interesting that someone asked about it. And, and so I heard the answer. I didn't actually have it recorded, but I did actually post about it when he first gave his answer. I left out the part about the Draymond Green show will go on only because I didn't have the video and I wasn't transcribing. So I didn't want to misquote him. And I was hoping that someone else would post the full video, So, but even when I posted everything he said, I just sort of paraphrased and I was like, he said he was speaking based on what he heard. Still most people were like, well, that's not an apology and who cares? He knows the real thing now. And so when the full video posted and everyone saw the Draymond Green show will go on, it was just yo, I mean, I had all kinds of people DMing me what did therapy do for this man? And just all kinds of stuff. And so listen, Draymond, I don't have an answer for you about him. I don't know why he does the things that he does. I don't love a lot of the things he does. He's a lot, and he still has moments. He really does that. It's I remember, because I mean, I'm a hardcore, Warriors fan. And, I used to really love Draymond and go hard for him and probably defend maybe some of his shit I shouldn't have. But, oh, I'm sorry. Am I allowed to use profanity on here?
You're fine.
But it just, once the Jordan Poole incident happened, everything after that, just I really didn't see him in the same light. And I just, he's just a lot, he's very important to the team in terms of how they play. And obviously Steph wants him there. Like that's it at the end of the day. If Steph didn't, he wouldn't still be there. Because I do think his antics have worn on a lot of people. So teammates, management, and just people throughout the organization. So it just is what it is. The only thing I always worry about is because he's so much, I'm someone who believes in karma. I'm like, can Steph's good karma outweigh his bad karma? You know what I'm saying? Because it's just so much,
It's a lot.
But yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot for sure. Bryan, as you should know here, Nat, is
here we go. Nope.
He doesn't even know what I'm going to say.
No, I know. Yes, I do. I know you too well. Yes, I do.
Bryan is a believer that Jimmy Butler changes the culture of organizations. Not what you thought I was going to say, right?
You called an audible.
No, I did not call an audible. That is actually what I was going to say.
You called an audible at the last second.
How from your eyes looking at this, how have the Warriors improved since acquiring Jimmy Butler? Because there was all this talk about they needed to get a next star next to Steph. They get Jimmy Butler. It seems like he's changed a lot with the culture around the team, except for Draymond. But how do you think he has changed the Warriors and improved them since they've gotten him on the team?
Yeah, well, I don't think he changed any culture. The Warriors' culture is set by Stephen Curry, so that's it. That the culture revolves around him. So I don't think he's changed anything with respect to the culture, but he obviously has come in and he helps the team. He's definitely the results are far exceeding my expectations. So I want to be clear that I've always thought that Steph Curry is not a player who needs a lot of help, but he definitely deserved help. He deserved a true co-star and he didn't have one. And so I wanted that for him. And I think most people did. And so to me, the question was, well, can Jimmy still be that person? I didn't even need him to be full on playoff Jimmy and all the things he was in Miami, right? But it was he's obviously aging. He had been out, wasn't really playing. So you didn't really know what he had, So I was someone who was kind of more oh, we should get Zach LaVine. I kind of like that more. And let's get, I wanted other moves. I was if Jimmy's the only option, get him. I wasn't don't get Jimmy, but there were some other moves that Vooch, there were just some other moves that I preferred, over him initially. And also candidly, I didn't love all the stuff in the Miami Heat. It's not really just about the Miami Heat. It's the pattern in every organization, So, and I know there were reports before he joined saying that he wouldn't extend with the Warriors. And I see people saying well, what changed? I'm the 55 million, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Right. All these players, when they say they're not going to sign, you give them the number they want and they're going to sign.
Yeah.
And so that was always the question, do you play a player like Jimmy Butler that right now, it seems yes, you do. But, if they get another championship, some people will say, who cares if he's not great the next 2 years? That championship is worth it, So I don't know, but his contract is set up to align with Stephen Curry's and at least what it is right now. And the pattern with Jimmy is usually when he wants to leave or he wants his money. So I think as long as he's has his money, he has his contract, I don't expect any issues from him, in the foreseeable future. So it's been a marriage made in heaven. I mean, like I said, I thought the Warriors still need some additional pieces. I still kind of do think they need a big, but this is he's just way exceeding the expectations, I think, for many. And so before it was yeah, they can get Jimmy, they'll be a playoff team this year and we'll see. Now I'm I'm on the train. They can contend. They are a contender.
Ooh.
Legitimately. And so, yeah, he's definitely changed the trajectory. But with Steph, you don't need a lot. He's not a star that needs a lot because he Steph is the best ceiling raiser in the history of basketball. He's the best floor spacer in the history of basketball. He doesn't need that much help. But Jimmy fixes and helps with a lot of the things that they did need. And because he sort of answers almost all those questions, helps the defense, being a connector, the free throws, all of those things, being able to control pace so they can slow down, not always play fast. All those things that he brings, he checks a lot of boxes. And you can play him without Steph. Like, you always have to play Draymond with Steph. But Jimmy Butler can play the non-Steph minutes. And you know what? They win those minutes. That does not happen in Warriors history. They do not win minutes if Steph is not on the floor. And they're winning minutes with Jimmy Butler. Like, that's impressive.
Do you think that he makes Golden State a bona fide contender at this stage? Because looking at just how they've played since the trade deadline, so they have the second best record in the NBA since the trade deadline. They're 6th in the Western Conference right now. They were, I think, 11th when they made the trade, 11th or 12th, and under 500. Now they're almost 10 games over 500. And right now, if the playoffs started, they would be facing, depending on tiebreaker situation, Memphis or Denver in round 1, which I think is actually very, because
they're 6th. That's right. I don't know why. You know what? Nowadays I think of like the seeding as like 1 through 6 because 7 and 8s are play-ins. I'm like, wouldn't they be facing OKC? But no, you're totally right. My bad. Okay.
They could avoid OKC. I mean, in their favor, they could avoid OKC.
I don't think they care about avoiding any teams. At least OKC wants to see the Warriors. But
okay. So let me ask you about that then. Like, how much do you think Jimmy Butler helps sort of raise this ceiling along with Steph Curry, especially given we know that his playoff history, and now this year he's more rested, he does turn it up in the playoffs?
I think the Warriors are bona fide contenders, like, full stop. You know, like it's not. Do I think like they are the best team in the league? No, but I think that they can contend. You know, they're not going to have a chance to really play Cleveland again. So that's that. So I don't know how they stack up against like a Cleveland. And you don't know how this new team stacks up to like a Boston. Like, that's to say if they made it out the West, right? Because but they did beat Boston earlier in the season, and that was before they even had Jimmy Butler. So, and that's when they were playing really well at the beginning of the season before things took a downturn. So, you know, there's no, like, they've beaten OKC multiple times this year, I think, before Jimmy, and, you know, like they can battle with OKC. So I'm not saying that they're a better team than OKC, and OKC should still be favored. They'd have home court, but that's a young team. I've seen Jalen sort of shrink in moments. You know what I mean?
And now
like,
he's hurt.
They've gone through their one season. I don't want to say their one season because it can be like the path to a championship. You don't just like get there on the first go round. You go a couple of rounds, you lose, like the Warriors. They won a second round series, then they lost in the first round in a 7-game series. And then, you know, so like it doesn't mean that this is their year. It could be, but it doesn't mean. So if they were to like lose to a team with more experience, to me, that wouldn't be like so shocking or so crazy. But to me, their youth would still be something that could potentially be a detriment to them. You know, same thing with the Grizzlies. I mean, we've battled with the Grizzlies so many times. I have no desire to ever see them in the postseason again because it's the matchup I don't love just because, but I don't really fear it. It's just they're annoying. Their coach is annoying. There's just too much extra drama with them.
I like this.
Personally, I don't want them to see the Grizzlies either. But you said it could be the Grizzlies or who?
Denver.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some Warriors fans being like, just avoid any team but Denver. I don't fear Denver either. Like, obviously, yes, Jokic is the best player in the league, but like Denver is not scaring nobody. Like, they're beatable.
So you don't. It doesn't sound like you'd be scared of any team in the Western Conference.
I wouldn't. But like, I have like really deep faith in Stephen Curry, you know, not like God-like faith, but I have like faith in him. So, you know, like, I mean, until, you know, I got to see someone beat them in a series, right? And it finally happened, I think. What was it when the Lakers? Because until like, right, and that was with Steph, Clay, and Draymond together. But now they have a new big three. You know, they've only lost one game with Jimmy Butler playing.
Right,
one game. So they've lost 2 games since he's come, but they've only lost. He didn't play in one of those games. So they've only lost 1 game. And they're getting Jonathan Kuminga back.
Can I ask about that actually? Like, how do you think that he hasn't played with Jimmy yet?
Right.
He was playing really well before he got hurt.
Yep.
He might play in this Knicks game also, actually,
He
which
is
going to be relevant. I mean, how do you think he sort of enters the fold here? What is that going to look like for this team? Because he's going to add the scoring piece, and then I wonder on the defensive end, things will be probably a little bit easier for him now. He's going to be with Jimmy, with Draymond, potentially with both of them in a bunch of lineups and closing lineups too.
Yeah, I mean, JK's defense sometimes can still leave something left to be desired for. So, so having Jimmy will definitely help along with Draymond. I think what they're getting back really with Kuminga is one, because like really he was kind of their only like second scoring option. Now he's going to go back to like a third option, which I think is like better, for him anyway, at least right now at this stage of his career. But they're getting the athleticism, which is like so important, especially when they go up against more athletic teams like the Grizzlies or, like a team like that. So they're getting that athleticism. They're getting back another player who can, for the most part, get to the rim at will, and also who can draw free throws. Not as great as Jimmy, but like also. So now you're getting back another player like that. I am a little concerned because Steve Kerr be playing sometimes with his lineups, but everything he said seems to suggest that like he's not planning to come and try to like reinsert Kuminga into the role that he was before because the team is playing well. He likes these lineups. So I guess the question is, how is that going to go over with Kuminga, in a year where he's seeking a contract? That's right. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. Also, him coming off the bench, I mean, I just think that those lineups are going to be staggered because you need him on there with some other players, and like the spacing wouldn't necessarily be that great with like a him and a Jimmy. So it sort of depends. So we'll just have to see what it looks like. There are definite things about his game that he adds to this team that would be really helpful, but it's a matter of meshing it and making it work. And they have a finite amount of time to try to get it to work. And we'll just see. Steve Kerr is not always the best at figuring out those things like very quickly. So, but they need to figure it out, and be rolling like heading into the postseason.
That would be good to see with the Warriors. Nat, I know you got to run. Last thing for me, real quick. Game on Saturday night. What are the keys to this game between the Knicks and the Warriors? What do you think will be important to watch on both sides? And will your boy Draymond Green fly off the handle and maybe punch somebody in the face in this game? That's what I'm worried about.
Excuse me.
I didn't mean to make you cough. That is not Natalie's boy. If you just tuned in, just to be clear, that is not Natalie's boy.
I mean, I don't expect Draymond to per se do anything, but I do expect there to be maybe a little bit of extra, I don't know, something to this game, like Cat is not really that kind of player, but like, who knows, maybe some of his teammates were offended for him. And, so I don't know. We'll see. So we'll have to see how that goes. In terms of like the keys to the game, I mean, the Knicks, I think, are still, first of all, the Knicks have like a really great history of coming into chase and winning. So
yes, I agree.
I feel like it's like where like Steph goes over to MSG and never loses there, and then like the Knicks always come back over and they win at Chase. So they're gonna be without Brunson, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, the Warriors should win that game, but I think that one of the keys is them not taking it lightly because there is no Jalen Brunson, right? Like you got to still, and that's easy to treat that like a game, like, oh, we got this, Jalen Brunson isn't playing, kind of a thing, And so you have Cat, like the Knicks are still like a good squad. So I feel like they're capable of coming in and playing, but the Knicks probably have to play like really perfect basketball. The Warriors can be turnover prone. So if the Knicks can get them to turn the ball over a little bit and get some points in transition, that would be good for them. The Warriors still can't really defend inside. So trying to like get some points in the paint. You know, I know that Cat doesn't necessarily love to be like a big that bangs in the post, but like that's what he should be trying to get some points in the paint. They can't really defend it. They can't. Like, you know, so teams that can score a lot on the inside. I don't know if you saw what like Detroit just did to them, but they were scoring at will, you know, inside the paint. The Warriors did ultimately end up winning that game, but I'm just saying that they had no answers for that. The answer was that their three ball started falling, right? And so if the Knicks can somehow successfully defend the three, although right now Steph Curry's like in another planet with the way he's playing and shooting, you know, then, you know, to me, it's trying to turn the Warriors over, trying to defend the 3-point line and scoring in the paint for the Knicks. But for the Warriors, it's just take this game seriously. Don't pretend. Don't like go into it like Jalen Brunson isn't there. On the opposite side, limit the turnovers. Do not give them easy chances to score. I really feel like if they just do those two things, the Warriors will win that game. You know, like it's honestly, it's indefensible if they lose a game with Jalen Brunson out. So to me, the pressure is on the Warriors to win that game. They need to keep the momentum going. The West standings are very tight right now, so a loss could drop them back in the standings. So that's what they need to do. That's what they need to focus on. But I do think it's a winnable game for the Knicks. I do.
We'll see. It should be a good one. There's somebody in the chat who's a regular here, Knicks 100 a game. He's not a fan of you. He said she doesn't respect us at all. I'm like, she just said the Knicks were a good team. What are you talking about? What are we talking about here?
I mean, like respect the Knicks as a whole, or respect them without Jalen Brunson. There's only a certain level of respect.
Right. You were saying you saying that it's a winnable game because they don't have an all-star is not crazy. She did. We said that they should win this game like we're the Wizards or something. No, she's just saying it's a winnable game. The Knicks have played good the last couple of games.
They are missing their best player.
Right.
If the team is missing, if the Warriors are missing Steph Curry, I'm saying an opposing team
the Knicks should be. You would be like the Knicks should win that game.
And on top of that, Golden State is also 12-1 in games that Jimmy Butler's played since the trade. 12-1.
And they're at home. Like, I'm sure the betting odds favor them as well. Like,
I'm pretty sure of that.
The line, I checked just now, literally just now. The line isn't up yet, but the Warriors will be favored, like undoubtedly. They'll be.
Come on, guys. Like, let's be serious. I'm not hating on the Knicks.
No, you're not. That is Natalie Esquire. Check her out. NBC Sports on her turf. Also with Hoopsters, does a great job. Big Warriors fan, but gives great perspective. And Draymond Green is not her boy. Just to let all of y'all know. Nat, I appreciate the time.
You put me on blast like this, I might get a call. Like, hold on, like, you know, like why? You know, I'm just joking.
No, he should have made a call before he made those comments. That's what he should have done.
I'm not gonna get a call from him.
I know. I know. Nat, I appreciate you, sister. We will definitely have you on again soon. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Bryan. Good to chat with you. Have a great rest of the show, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Natalie. Once again, Natalie Esquire. Check her out. As I said, NBC Sports on her turf. Hoopster says does a fantastic job with a lot of stuff, especially around the WNBA too. She's really great on that. So when we start doing Liberty live shows in the summer, you'll definitely see Natalie back on here with me. She's one of the good voices in the women's basketball space as well too. All right. Thanks, everybody. Watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or wherever you are watching. Shout out to Keith Watkins watching us from the ATL. Appreciate you, man. Knicks 100 a game. We always appreciate you. And I will be shocked if you ever type in lowercase because we know it's you. By the way, Knicks 100 a game. I don't know if you had a fake account or somebody was trying to be you, but somebody came on here last week and they typed in all caps. They were biting your style.
Or second account.
Or second account. Not say fake account. My apologies.
I mean? Like,
but I felt they were bringing the Knicks 100 a game energy, and we appreciate seeing the energy under this handle. That's all we're saying. We appreciate the energy. So that's it. All right. Before we get to real or not, I want to get back to the Mikal Bridges topic that we were talking about. Yeah. That I thought was really good. Sorry, what'd you say?
We have sound to play still. That's right.
Yes. We're gonna get to the Stephen A. comments that he had on this about Thibs, but I think we were on the same, somewhat of more of the same page than you might have thought on the Mikal Bridges comments, right? And I did say this because I understood when Mikal Bridges made the comments he made yesterday that the minutes police were going to be like, see, told you so, right? Like I understood the minutes police were going to go crazy with this. Again, do I think Thibs can give some more minutes this season, talking about this season, to some younger players in lower games against lesser competition? Yes. I think when people say all this stuff, it's like, oh, we should give people more minutes. Here's something people don't give credit to. The Knicks did not have we knew depth was going to be an issue with the Knicks coming this year. We talked about this from the top of the show back in October. We've talked about this. We knew depth was going to be an issue. We thought defense was going to be an issue, right? Landry Shamet played 20 minutes last night. And I will get into this on this week's upcoming show. But Landry Shamet's been playing much better off the bench, defensively, offensively. He looks a lot more confident. Thibs started giving him more minutes, right? So, and I don't think this is anything. Maybe this is something to do with what Mikal Bridges said. We'll get into that later. Knicks 100 a game let us know that it is only one me. There's no duplicates out here. I'm glad that's right. Knicks 100 a game. You let them know. Don't. You can't bring the all caps energy. If your name is not Knicks 100 a game, you can't bring the all caps energy. Knicks 100 game also says Thibs never throws a player under the bus. This is true. Thibs is not somebody to speak about a player in media, which is why I did think his comments saying that he did not have that conversation with Mikal Bridges was interesting.
Yeah, and he's had some characters in his day as a
now.
As a head coach.
I also feel like I'll go back to what I was saying before we had Natalie come on. Mikal Bridges being the Iron Man in this. Again, I don't think this was like DEFCON 7 or whatever you call the highest DEFCON when he said this. I don't think it was like ring the alarm. You know what I'm saying? But I thought it was interesting that Mikal Bridges said it. I will say that. I thought it was interesting. I didn't think it was a big deal. I thought the two grown men could have a conversation about it, and I'll move on. And to be fair, it didn't affect either of them last night. Tom, if some other coaches might be real petty. Oh, you want to go talk in the media? Oh, yeah. You want me to cut your minutes? I'm cut your minutes. You're going to sit right here on the bench next to me. Some petty coach might do that.
He cares about winning too much.
I agree. But Mikal Bridges also was a professional and went and did his job. And it seemed like the men, I don't think they had any problem. In fact, Tom Thibodeau called the last play for Mikal Bridges, and he delivered. So, now, I'm going to be honest. It didn't matter to me if the shot went in or not. Because Mikal Bridges still would have been fine. He had played a damn good game. In fact, I think something he didn't get credit for, he played the last 10 minutes of this game, including overtime, with 5 fouls. And still was aggressive on defense and offense, which we have not seen from this man. So I don't know if all this is a turning point for Mikal Bridges. Am I concerned? I just think Knicks fans are triggered. They've had so many things that have come up in the media that's been like, oh, this is good. I don't think this was going to be the thing. Okay? In fact, if that conversation did happen, if it did happen, according to Mikal Bridges, I think it's a good thing he went and talked to Tom Thibodeau about it. Do you think it's a bad thing, Bryan, that he went and talked to Tom Thibodeau about this? And the other question I ask you is, do you think it's a bad thing that he was honest, which we ask for athletes to do, when Stephen Bondi asked him the question, if he was being honest and not lying about it like Tom Thibodeau kind of said that he was?
It's probably fine. I think the question might be, Dex, is it a bad thing that we know about this? Is probably what I would say. You know, like Keith brings up a comment, this should have stayed in house. And in doing what we do, I want to know everything. But if I'm on the other side of this, I probably would have liked to, I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world, but I probably would have preferred this be kept inside, so to speak. And I'll also say, like, it helps that they won yesterday, so maybe it's not going to be that big of a deal, even though it was Portland and in overtime. But they won without Jalen Brunson in a game where Scoot Henderson, looked amazing. Scoot Henderson, he's figuring it out over there. But yeah, like, I think ultimately the fact that we know about it will give some people ammunition, so to speak, in terms of like, see, you know, there's a little more to this. And the fact that we know about it is why Stephen A. Smith ended up saying something about it on First Take, because of the sort of back and forth piece of this.
We're going to get to that in 1 second and my thoughts on that. Here's one thing I will say to that. And Keith Watkins, we appreciate you, brother. You said this should stay in house. Earlier this season, Josh Hart was cryptic and said some people being selfish, right? Should that have stayed in the house too? Should he say, I was there when he said it. Should that have stayed in the house too? So here's, if you think that should have stayed in house, or you think this, what'd you say?
But who do we know?
We don't know who he was talking about because he was being cryptic, which is my point.
So it's just weird, cryptic athlete.
Right. Do we
garbage.
like honesty, or do we like cryptic or passive aggressiveness? Like, which one is it?
I think people like both.
Or is it the fact that this is coming from someone who the Knicks traded 5 first-round picks for and has vastly underperformed this season, and some people are like not happy with that, so they're like, we don't want to hear you say anything. And I think the latter. I think that has a lot to do with it here. I think the fact that it's coming from a guy who's underperformed this season, even if he's being honest, people are not trying to hear it from him right now. Do I think that's fair? No, I don't.
So if this comes out of Josh Hart's mouth, not the cryptic part, the Mikal Bridges part, what do you think this goes over differently? Jalen Brunson, we know it does, because Jalen Brunson
Brunson also would never say this, but that's all
right. But Jalen Brunson could commit a crime, a certain not like a real one.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, like he, and people will defend him to the death. Like it doesn't matter almost, depending on what he did. But anyway,
right.
if it were Josh Hart, like if it were Josh Hart saying this, I feel like, to your point, maybe it does get received differently, because Mikal Bridges has kind of been a piñata all season, because Jalen Brunson has a 100% approval rating. Josh Hart is close, and Karl-Anthony Towns has won a lot of people over because of his play and because he's an all-star. And OG Anunoby is not going to get the brunt of it, because as a defender, you kind of see what he brings to the table, whereas Mikal Bridges has been more inconsistent, like, in fairness, and he's getting a ton of minutes, and he's Iron Man, he's active, he plays every game, but he's been inconsistent. So, Dex, to your point, also at the most important thing, and this is something you've said, the 5 first-round picks. And people are going to – it's like with Allen Houston, like there's very little he could do right after signing a $100 million deal, even though after that he was a damn good player until he got hurt.
Right. I hate that, because people can't see, the saying, they can't see the forest from the trees. They can't look past the 5 first-round picks. And I think if people are being honest with themselves, that are really mad, or I'll say concerned about this with Bridges, or think this is a big deal, that's part of it. I get it. I get your disdain for how he's underperformed this season. I'm to be the first. We've talked about this ad nauseum here, but I do think who says something, it goes over differently. And look, if you want to tell me you're not trying to hear nothing from somebody who underperformed this year on the team, I understand where you're coming from. But at the end of the day, and I look at this all with sports, the teams, it's a workplace. And if what Mikal Bridges said was true, and he had an issue with something, and he talked to his boss about it and had a conversation, and then said his boss was receptive, what's the big problem? He talked to his boss. He said it was receptive. It's okay. Now, Tom Thibodeau, I actually do think the conversation happened. I do. I want to be very clear about that. Tom Thibodeau, I think, is annoyed that it was spoken about to the media, because that's not Tom Thibodeau's get down. I understand that too, right? But Stephen Bondy asked him a question. Mikal Bridges was not upset about it. There was no tone. People didn't get that, because most people read this. There was no video of this. Most people just read this, right? I see Keith here saying it's an unnecessary distraction we don't need right now. I don't think it becomes a distraction. I think and this is my point about the Knicks fan base, because you've seen things go bad under past regimes, even if there's some common dialogue, which I think this is what this just is, it's like, oh man, are we going back to this? Is this going to be a distraction again? Is this going to be like what happened in the past? No, it's not. It's a whole new culture. It's a whole new regime. I do not think this will be a distraction at all whatsoever. When Josh Hart made the cryptic stuff, and there were Knicks fans on Twitter trying to look through videos and look at people's body language and figure out who was selfish, did that become a distraction? No, it didn't. And some of you are going to say, well, Dexter, he didn't name anybody's name. But again, that's, to me, which are you okay with? The passive-aggressive cryptic stuff, that's cool. But when we say we want honesty, but when people are honest, we're just like, nah, that's too much. Or it could be a distraction. I think if Mikal Bridges' tone was one where he was coming at Thibs and it was like, he needs to do better, then I would agree with y'all. But that wasn't his tone. And the context in the question he was asked, that matters. You can't take things out of context and just be like, this is going to be a distraction, right? And Knicks 100 game is saying, he was saying basically telling you to fix that or I'm out. That is not what he was saying. Mikal Bridges wants to sign an extension. He knows he needs to play better.
Yeah.
That is not what he said.
I'm sure he wants to stay in New York.
Yeah, I don't think I do not think there's a problem here. That's all I'm saying. Right?
Yeah.
If his tone was different, I might agree with Keith and some other people. I might. But that's not what it was. And I heard this from the other reporters, Stephen Bondi, our colleague, who asked the question, wrote the story on this, went on with our colleague Brandon London and talked about it. And fine. See, I respect what Knicks 100 a game said here. If you want to say Hart was wrong too, and that's your thing, and you're consistent, and none of this should go on to me, I respect that.
I don't think he's wilding on that personally. So
who?
I think he might. Knicks 100 a game. Like,
I don't.
If you think Bridges and Hart, like, again, if you're pro just keeping everything inside,
then be consistent with it. That's all I'm saying. And if Knicks 100 a game is consistent with it and saying, hey, well, Hart did the cryptic passive aggressive stuff, I didn't like that. And Keith, you could tell me if you agree with this too, because Keith brought up the point about it staying in house. If everything is consistent for you guys, I respect that. I do. Yeah. Like I do. Keith said,
I've been a fan since 83.
I'm not used to having night things. Shout out to you, Keith, because you've been a fan a long time. Respect.
I mean, to be fair though, Keith. I mean, you've had since '83. You've had some.
No. Keith had probably some up and down years in the '80s. He had a great run in the '90s, and then 2 decades of futility.
I'm just saying, there are Knicks fans who are my age, who basically, I would say, in the year 2000, 2001, became a Knicks fan, and it just they haven't gotten anything up until now, virtually, except for Carmelo Anthony and that lovely 54 win team that I think aged very, very gracefully, except they couldn't get it done against the Pacers, but neither here nor there.
You're making a good point. Age matters here. Like, I understand when you're looking at Keith. You're like, yo, at least you saw the 90s. And I understand.
Right. Not even that. 83, you still got Bernard King. You got early Patrick Ewing. You got early Mark Jackson. You know what I mean? Like, you got something bubbling in the 80s. And then in the 90s, it became a decade-long competitive run, including 2 trips to the finals.
And Keith also said he didn't like the Hart's comment either. So, again, I respect where you guys are coming from. On that, if you want nothing out in the media and you're fair in it, I rock with y'all. I hear what you're saying because it's consistent. I was just bringing up to the point that some people may be being consistent, not you two guys, Knicks 100 a game and Keith. I appreciate you guys for sharing that perspective because I do understand that completely in what you're saying. But we're not the only person talking about it. I appreciate all you guys chiming in on it.
Tariq tees us up for the sound that we're about to play.
Tariq S says it's only a distraction because of chatty patties, a term that I love. Love soap operas with the eyes rolling emoji. Tariq, I do agree. And sometimes certain franchises in sports, the Knicks being one of them, and they haven't always done favors to themselves, as I'm sure Mr. Keith Watkins knows very well in his years of watching the Knicks. They haven't always done themselves favors, and that's why I understand sometimes the fans are a little triggered. I get it. I'm not even mad at y'all. But not myself and Bryan, because we're here to give you nuance, okay? Some people in the media have reactions to it, strong reactions to it. And Stephen A. Smith had this to say on First Take about what Bridges said and Tom Thibodeau, and his reaction was more to Tom Thibodeau. And let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Tom Thibodeau is in trouble. He's in a world of trouble. I don't give a damn that the New York Knicks are 6-1 in overtime games. I don't care that Mikal Bridges, but so much, of course, because I'm a diehard Knicks fan and he won the game last night. Molly, big perk, prior to the game, Mikal Bridges revealed he had a private meeting with Tom Thibodeau about the starters playing too many minutes and the bench playing too little, saying, quote, sometimes it's not fun on the body. Tom Thibodeau proceeds to play this brother 41 minutes, put the ball in his hands. He delivered the goods, and they won the game, which is a good thing. But then Tom Thibodeau refused to acknowledge that there was a one-on-one conversation. He said it never happened. That's a player that the Knicks sent 5 picks away for to bring to New York to pair with the superstar for the team, Jalen Brunson, his former teammate at Villanova, okay? saying something opposite that the coach is saying when everybody and their mother knows that Bridges is right. And here's where Bridges has the credibility. Molly Perk can testify to this. He's one of the Iron Men of the league. He's always playing. He doesn't miss games, and he doesn't play minimal minutes. And Perk, when? Because we know I got a whole bunch of stuff. I know I do NBA Countdown with you, but I got a lot of stuff to do, okay? I'm not on the NBA every moment of every day like you are. Big Perk, when have we ever heard Mikal Bridges complain about anything, let alone minutes? That's not the same page. That's not a good look for the New York Knicks. And if you got to choose between a player and the coach, under these circumstances, when you're looking at players being worn out, Mikal Bridges ain't say that for himself, y'all. He's speaking for the team. And Tom Thibodeau says it didn't happen? That's a bad sign.
Is it though?
I know you didn't like that.
Is it a bad sign? Like, is Tom Thibodeau in trouble? Like, do we have to be that dramatic? He's in trouble?
Well,
because of this?
Dex, when you're getting 100 M's, yeah, you kind of got to be that dramatic. Like, the game is the game. Like,
no. Bryan?
Do you think he believes this?
Bryan,
I don't know.
Bryan, my good friend, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. No.
You know where I'm going. Like,
Bryan's making a great point here. And this is what I hope our viewers here can understand, because this is no shade to anybody. This is not shade to Stephen A., who I'm not doing, or anybody on First Take or anything like that. I like Stephen A. I have no problem with Stephen A. on this at all whatsoever. I don't necessarily agree with him here, but sometimes what we got to understand in watching these debate shows is what Bryan is saying. They're doing this to garner reaction.
Yes.
They're doing this to play on emotion. And when you hear Tom Thibodeau's in trouble,
and we just fed into
it's a
it.
visceral moment. What's going to happen? Tom Thibodeau is not going to be on the hot seat because of Mikal Bridges, right? When Jalen Brunson is on the team,
right?
Who Bryan just said, and I agree with him, has 100% approval rating. You think it's going to come down to Mikal Bridges over Tom Thibodeau? We've seen this before. Star players will get coaches fired. And this is not me shading Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges is not that. We all know this. He is not that. So when you're saying that, it's being really dramatic here, okay? We have to put these things in perspective. Now, there are pieces of what Stephen A. said that I thought was right. Like, I think he did the point I brought up. It is interesting when you hear this from Irons Man. Things can be interesting, but not be a problem. Right? It's interesting that the Iron Man brought it up. And I respect the people who maybe didn't want this to go public, like Keith said in Knicks 100 a game said. Right? Tariq S. said, Mikal wasn't complaining. He was asked a question. Stephen A. He said SAS is annoying. I think that context matters here. He was asked a question. He answered honestly. Right? Honest answers don't always lead to distractions. I understand how some people want to keep everything in house, and I respect that. But to go and say that Tom Thibodeau is in trouble because of this.
You gotta, listen.
Look, we've talked with Stephen Bondy about this on this show.
Yeah.
Has Tom Thibodeau been stubborn? Yes. Is he setting his ways on certain things and how he wants to do and so committed to winning? Yes.
I don't even think it's that deep. I think, listen, you get paid $100 million, you're going to put on a performance. This is another great cut for the reel. The delivery was 10 out of 10. You know what I mean? In terms of what he was saying, whatever, they'll move on to the next thing. You got to fill a segment. I don't know what block of the show it was. A, B, C,
Doesn't
D.
matter.
I don't know.
Doesn't matter. The point you just said was great. They'll move on to the next thing. And so will we. So will all the Knicks fans. None of you will be talking about this after Saturday.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll say tomorrow. Like, it happened. Some of you guys got stressed out yesterday, and then the stress was relieved. Mikal Bridges hit the big shot. Mikal Bridges, let's give Mikal Bridges his flowers in the recent play. He's played well, guys. He's been better. Now, can this help the team when Brunson comes back? There's a lot to talk about with this. And I think a lot will depend on how the Knicks finish this road trip. Right, Brian? You said to me last week, yo, it depends on who they beat and who they lose to on this trip. And I was inclined to agree with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think now it matters in the context that they lost Jalen Brunson, because we're looking at this trip a little bit differently. They're 2-2. They've won 2 in a row with Jalen Brunson. If they get a win and come home 3-2 and beat the Warriors without Jalen Brunson, it's a damn good trip.
Yes.
It's a damn good trip, guys.
But
here's the but.
But if they come back 2-3, I don't think you're sounding the alarm with the context. Like, Jalen Brunson's injury makes us look a little differently. And the fact that we talked about this last week, their schedule coming out of this trip, not the hardest thing in the world. So they'll probably be fine either way. But I still think you obviously want to see them play well against Golden State.
Absolutely.
In a spot where they've been successful. After that, you got home against Miami, who is sputtering right now. You have the Spurs, who just announced that De'Aaron Fox is going to get shut down for the rest of the season.
Yep.
So have fun playing against Stephon Castle. You have Charlotte, who's playing nobody. You have Washington, who's playing nobody. You have Dallas, who's playing nobody. Then you have the Clippers. And then Milwaukee, and then Portland. Like, that's where it kind of picks up again. You have Cleveland on the second of back-to-back coming up in a couple weeks. But, like, these next 5 games, you're going to be facing just non-playoff teams, except for the Heat. They might get in, but they're not very good right now. Post Butler.
And the Knicks have a chance to survive, as we talked about last week on the show. Maria Marino, they have a chance to survive this stretch without Jalen Brunson. Before we move on to real or not and get out of here, because we got to wrap really soon. Yeah. Brian, when I was out asking that second question to Natalie, you assumed that I was going to say something. What did you think I was going to say, sir?
Real or not? All right. What 3 questions?
No. We are not ducking the smoke here. No. I'm actually. This might end well for you. What did you think I was going to say?
I think you were going to say that I am an avid Jimmy Butler supporter, which you look like you want to jump in. What happened? What
I was going to say, you were right, and I called the audible. Moving on to real or not.
Jimmy Butler is one of my favorite players in the NBA. I don't enjoy the antics when it's contract time. At the same time, though, just real quick on this. At the same time, if the Heat see themselves as competitive, then just give him the extension. Like, they tried to string 2 different things together, and they mismanaged it, and then Jimmy mismanaged it, and it was just a whole ordeal that they could have avoided. But if you're a Knicks fan, you're happy about that, because now you don't have to worry about Jimmy Butler in the playoffs, unless you see Golden State in the finals, which I don't think is going to be the case for either side, to be honest.
Damn right, Knicks fans are happy about that. See, I just want to be honest with you, man. I wasn't going to say that. I just wasn't going to let you get the moment in front of that.
Now, if the Heat get Kevin Durant in the summer, then we'll have an interesting discussion beyond that.
We'll have a lot of interest in the summer. All right, let's do real and out before we get out of here. Thank you, everybody, rocking with us. Keith Watkins, our guy Greg is here in the building. Shout out to our guy Greg. Hope the ball movement we're seeing with the team without Brunson continues when he gets back. Yeah, Greg, I agree. I think that's going to be a lot, and that's going to be a huge part of my show and what we talk about on Monday, depending on what we see on Saturday. And is this sort of sustainable, what we've been seeing with the Knicks? We'll get to some sustainability. Let's start with the first real or not. Landry Shamet. I talked about this earlier. He played 20 minutes last night. I thought it was one of his best games, actually, as a Knick off the bench. He looked really confident in his shot taking, a lot more aggressive on defense. I don't know if he just feels healthier since with the shoulder injury that he had earlier in the year. But since we've been talking about minutes, bring out the minutes, police. Has Landry Shamet earned himself at least 15 minutes a night, Brian? What do you say?
Without Jalen Brunson, yes. With Jalen Brunson, you probably don't want to have to, but I think it's fine if you do, if he's playing well. I don't expect it in the playoffs unless he's playing well, but without Jalen Brunson, yes. And honestly, Landry Shamet is a vet. He's been in the league. You know he can shoot. If he's playing well, like, I think he's a guy you could ride out for 15, 20 minutes. And you'll want to do that to just, back to the Mikal Bridges point, I guess, if we're calling it that, but to keep guys fresh, ultimately. Especially Jalen Brunson, like whenever he comes back, you're not gonna. I shouldn't say this way, but you're not gonna want to play him 40 minutes right off the bat. But Tom Thibodeau, he ain't gonna care. He'll probably the first couple games within the first couple games back, he'll probably do that. But yeah, I think Landry Shamet, that keep playing him, especially if he's playing well. And shooters need rhythm. So if he has his shot going, if he comes in and he's 2 for 3 right away from 3, just keep him out there as long as he's helping.
Yeah, you see the minutes in his last 7 games, played really well when he's gotten some time, averaging 15 and a half minutes per game. I'm in the same boat here. I think with Jalen Brunson out, you got to play him as long as he's playing well. I think his confidence seems to be going up. This is something I think is important for a lot of these players without Jalen Brunson. Just their confidence can go up and can be really good by the time the playoff comes around. All right, second thing, the Knicks defense has also been better, particularly over the last 4 to 5 games. 113.7 defensive rating this season. That's 14th in the NBA. They also are 14th in defensive rating according to Cleaning the Glass, which takes out the garbage time minutes. So they're trending up in the right direction, which we talked about. And the defense has been better. We even saw Cat make some big defensive plays against Portland last night. Do you think the Knicks will finish top 12 in defensive rating? This is a zone we said they needed to be trending towards by the end of the season. Do you think they're able to get into that top 12, Bryan?
I think it was after the Kings game that they asked Josh Hart about the improved defense, and then he said because Jalen Brunson's not out there.
Yeah, he did say that.
The thing, I want to say no because top 12, is tough. But again, Miami, San Antonio, Charlotte, Washington, Dallas, all of these teams are either depleted or struggling or both. And this is without Jalen Brunson. Most likely the entire way, those 5 games. I mean, even if Jalen Brunson's healthy within the next couple of days, I wouldn't rush him back for any of those games. Just save him for the Clippers. And beyond that stretch, I think they'll get in there. But then after that, you have like the Clippers again, who have an underrated offense, especially with Kawhi out there if he's playing consistently. If he plays that game, Norman Powell's been injured. We'll see if he's ready. And then you have like Milwaukee, Portland, who you just saw. Philly's not going to have much, but then you have Cleveland twice before the season ends, and you still have Boston. You still have Phoenix, who terrible defensively, but very good offensively. So I think they're probably going to end around where they are, like in that 14, 15-ish range. But I do think they can get in that top 12 because of this next stretch coming up. But I think they might get brought back down a little bit because of the games after.
I think they could. I think all this fans are going to care about, and I don't think they're necessarily wrong. It's kind of what you said. How do they play against the upper echelon teams? No, I do think it's good if you're having good habits heading into that. I think I'm kind of like you. I think they're more inclined to maybe finish slightly out of that, like 13, 14, maybe right where they are right now. I do like the fact that it's trended better, that it's looked better. Even before Jalen Brunson got hurt, it was starting to look a little bit better. So, the Laker game itself with Jalen Brunson there, they were playing a very good defensive game. They had the Lakers under 100 in regulation. So they have played some really good defense here. Even last night, which was a battle against the Blazers, they played some good defense. So we'll see there. I'll say no on this, but I'm hoping I'm wrong. I think at one point they'll crack the top 12. Will they finish it? Like you said, Bryan, a lot of it's going to come down. How do they play against the 2 games against Cleveland? How do they play against Boston? If they play good defense in those games, I think they can finish in the top 12. But
if they get rocked again,
not going to be good. And then a lot of us will get to see how it looks with Mitch on the floor, which you're already seeing Tom Thibodeau do a lot of offensive defense subbing late with Mitch and Cat, which I actually like. So something to keep an eye on there. All right.
That stretch in April, it's Philly and then Cleveland on the second of a back-to-back in Cleveland. Then it's at Atlanta and then Phoenix at home on a back-to-back. Those are 2. Like Atlanta's offense, sneakily, we know because of Trae Young-led offense, like they're liable to get 130, 140, like any given night, especially because of the pace that they play at. And then you have Boston, Detroit, Cleveland on the second of a back-to-back. Then you end the season with Brooklyn. Like that April stretch is going to be key to this. Really?
Yeah, it is. We'll see. I think there's a good day where they can finish March in the top 12, but we'll see how it is in April. We will see. All right, last thing, Knicks. We got to go back to Mikal Bridges. The Thibs will utilize the Knicks bench more after Mikal's comments. He's going to listen to Mikal Bridges. It's not going to be a distraction. He's not going to be in trouble, like some people out there are saying. Do you think we'll see more a change to the bench minutes and a quieting of the minutes police because of Mikal Bridges' comments?
I don't think it'll be a big shift. I think we'll see opportunities because Jalen Brunson is out. And then I think we'll see opportunities maybe down the stretch if like they get locked into that number 3 spot with a couple games to go. And then maybe you'll see guys sit, other guys get opportunities. Maybe Dadier gets a start or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, well, it'll be little things like that. But for the most part, I think Thibs is going to be Thibs, for better or for worse. I think.
I think we're getting 15 minutes of Marjon Beauchamp on Saturday.
Sarcasm.
That's what's happening. 15 minutes to Marjon Beauchamp, 20 minutes for DeLon Wright, a little 20-piece of minutes for Tyler Kolek, and everybody be happy.
Has DeLon Wright played?
He has. He came in garbage time the other night against the Kings.
He's played 4 games since they traded for. I thought it was 2. I forgot about the garbage time one, actually. Yeah. He solely played for Beauchamp. That's right. He did get some garbage time minutes as well. Yeah. Maybe we see those guys a few more times before the season ends. We'll see.
There we go. All right, minutes police can take a break. All right, that's gonna wrap it for this show. Shout out to our guest Natalie Esquire, who joined us from NBC Sports, doing a great job to help break down the Warriors. If you missed this, you can check this back on YouTube. You can check the replay. You can also listen to this on all digital streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to as well. We'll be back with you. I think next week we're doing a Wednesday show, if I remember correctly. I think there's a Knicks play on Thursday, if I remember correctly. I think I looked at that this week. I think we're going to be doing on Wednesday. Bryan, you can tell me if I'm wrong on that.
They play Wednesday and Thursday, it looks like.
Oh, they play Wednesday and Thursday. All right. We will let you know the schedule, what we're going to do later in the week. New episode of New York Got Game will drop on Monday. So that should be a really good one. We'll see how this road trip finishes up with the Knicks in the Bay Area to battle the Warriors. Appreciate everybody checking in. Keith Watkins, I appreciate you saying double-double for Dadier. Hey, I'd like to see it. Not bad at all whatsoever. Shout out to everybody checked in. Keith Watkins, Knicks 100 game. Robert Rivera. I feel like there's somebody else I left out earlier. Greg was up in here. Greg Film Stuff. Tariq, who had the comments about the drama that we appreciate. Thank you to everybody for checking in. We appreciate you rocking with us to talk some Knicks. We got a lot more content coming soon. Bryan and I are about to get playoff ready. I know Bryan is ready for a lot of us. We're just kind of waiting. We would like to fast forward and get to April so we can get to the playoffs. But we got a lot of more good stuff coming for New York Got Game. We'll be doing a lot of more live shows like this throughout the playoffs. So that should be fun as well, too. So definitely stay tuned with us. We appreciate everybody. For our great producer, Jeff Stansberry, my guy, Bryan Fonseca. I'm Dexter Henry. Minutes Police, it's going to be okay. It's not a distraction. And Tom Thibodeau, he'll be okay. He'll be okay, too. He'll be judged by what he does in the playoffs. But everybody can breathe easy now. And give Mikal Bridges some flowers. He saved y'all last night. Later, guys. Peace.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.